Welcome to Making the Marquee, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to break into the entertainment industry and what it takes to build a lasting career once you're there. I'm your host, Natalie Bober. After spending 5 years as a hockey and softball play-by-play broadcaster and working as a social media manager, I realized there's one question no one seems to be able to answer. How do people actually break into the entertainment industry? So in this podcast, we'll sit down with the people who have achieved success in different fields of entertainment. We'll explore the journeys behind their careers, the lessons behind the successes, the realities behind the spotlight, and the stories you won't find on a resume. We'll also break down the biggest news shaping the entertainment industry because understanding the business is just as important as understanding the talent. Whether you're chasing your own dream or simply fascinated by the people behind the spotlight, you're in the right place. This is Making the Marquee. Let's get started. For our inaugural episode, I couldn't think of a better guest. Chris Childers is the co-host of Full Ride on SiriusXM, host of Show Pony Live, professor, and author. He also was just named as one of the top 20 shows in America by Barrett Sports. Chris, welcome to the very first episode of Making the Marquee.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you are a great guest because your story is exactly what the show's about. Breaking into a competitive industry, overcoming obstacles, and discovering the rare success and a path that we couldn't imagine. One question, since this is the inaugural episode, we're going to start off. When you think Making the Marquee, what comes to mind?
A big concert or going to a Broadway show or, the Marquee. You're going to see Pearl Jam at the Chicago Theater or, you're going to see, Smashing Pumpkins, the Metro back in 96. I mean, it's the main event. It's the thing that's being showcased. It's exciting. It's a star. It's the Marquee. I think of George Mikan back in the day for the Minneapolis Lakers when it said George Mikan and the Lakers versus the Knicks or something like that. And it was, the guys were making fun of him for being on the Marquee. So I would say it's stardom. It's entertainment. It's the Marquee.
And before we jump into your career, everyone knows you as Show Pony. I know the story, but can you tell our listeners who don't know the story, how did you become Show Pony?
Yeah, so it happened organically. It really did. It was kind of wild. So I was doing a mock committee playoff thing for the college football playoff committee does a mock process with members of the media. And this was when SiriusXM and ESPNU radio were a thing. So Channel 84 was branded by ESPNU. And we weren't working for ESPN. They were just a partner, and they put their branding on our stuff. So we had a collaboration loosely, but one of those things at the beginning, it was kind of a better collaboration than the way that it kind of went on. But at the beginning, they were having this mock committee with Laura Rutledge and Al Duncan and Kevin Nagandi and all kinds of Stanford Steve and all kinds of different stars, Andrea Adelson and a bunch of different ESPN dignitaries, and then me. So ESPN asked if they wanted, if Sirius wanted to add one of their people, considering we had the partnership. So my boss, John Cassio, sent me to go get in there. And it's a mock committee. So you have to debate. It's, they're presenting you the all the data from a specific year, and you have to get in there and muck it up with, some of the dignitaries. And my boss said to me, I need you to go there and be my show pony. And I kind of mentioned that to Rick. I kind of laughingly mentioned that to Rick, and Rick just went with it. He loved it. He's like, yeah. And then he just from that moment on, it stuck. And I became the show pony. And it never has stopped. It's just kind of grown into its little thing. Everybody in my industry, not personally, there's a lot of people in my personal life that probably have no idea that my nickname's the show pony. But in my professional life, it's how people, they call me Pony, they text me, they call me on the phone, they reference me on the air. So it's just become a thing that's taken on a life of its own. It's become the name of my company, Show Pony Media, and it happened organically just by me being asked to go to Texas and to be a part of that mock committee room. And I look back on the picture of me now with all those ESPN people, and it's kind of wild to think that that was the origination story of the Show Pony nickname.
And you just mentioned you have a company, Show Pony Media. But before Show Pony Media ever existed, you were a kid in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago. You mentioned in one of your articles on Substack that your grandparents were your inspiration. You used to walk around the block with your grandparents. Who were your biggest inspirations? Not only your grandparents, and you also sat at Sunday dinner with after church with talking with your family about a fictitious person. What
Joe Garbula.
Joe Garbula? Can you
Yeah.
talk about that influence and other influences you had growing up, and who you wanted to emulate in
Yeah,
Chicago
I
media?
would say my biggest influences as far as, who I liked to listen to, who I was inspired by their work to jump into the sports radio business. I think more than anything, more than anybody, it would be Terry Boers. Terry Boers it really was my inspiration. He passed away not long ago. That was one of the first things I wrote about when I started my website. One of the first, probably 3 or 4 articles. It happened to happen right around then, early January, February, something like that. But Terry, I'm an odd guy. I'm quirky. I am kind of introverted when I'm in real life, and then extroverted when I'm on the radio. Um, it's a weird dynamic. A microphone can bring out life in me, but if I'm just kind of sitting around, I don't have a lot to say. It's weird. It just kind of is what it is. It's one of the quirks of I don't know, my idiosyncrasies, but seems to work for me being on the radio. But Terry Boers was very weird and odd. And the Boers and Bernstein show that I loved, and Dan Bernstein's another guy that I absolutely looked up to as well. And I loved the radio show because it wasn't really about sports. I mean, it like sports was at the base of it, but they did so many weird kind of out there things, and they were so interesting and entertaining. And Boris would make these odd noises and say kind of this off the wall crap. And he was just so kind of bizarre, but his bizarre worked and it was brilliant. I laughed hysterically, and I just kind of looked up to him. When I met him, he signed an autograph for me, and then he signed an autograph for my buddy Bobby. And the autograph says, to Bobby, my back hurts, Terry Boers, just kind of a random. And I just love it. I found him so inspirational. As far as like the reason I have the job that I have and got to where I'm at, I think there's somebody at Libertyville High School, Don Johnson, who was the guy who ran the television department at Libertyville when I was there. I know he went on and was doing security and stuff like that, and just retired. But when I was there, he was a retired anchor from ESPN and Fox Chicago, and he did a lot for me. He took a lot of time investing in me, helping me learn the base of the business, helping me to learn delivery and pace and confidence and all kinds of things that I never would have had. I think my time at Libertyville High School, and that's the reason I look back at high school so fondly. I don't have some people hated high school, some people really didn't love it. And I wasn't a popular kid by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. But what I did love about it was my time with the TV, with LHS TV. And it was my whole world. I spent my lunches in that office. I spent after school in that office. I was editing tape. I was working on broadcasting. And I got a lot out of him. I really did. He knew, he could see that I had a lot of drive and ambition, and I wanted to do this for a living. And I wasn't going to take no for an answer. This was going to be my way of making a living, no matter what. And so he kind of molded me, and I think I wouldn't be anywhere without him. So from that perspective, he did a lot for me. And then I listened to The Score a lot, 670, where Bors and Bernstein was in Chicago, and still love that channel. Love the people there. They have wonderful Mitch Rosen, who I've gotten to know a little bit. Ryan Porth, who came from Nashville, somebody that I knew quite well, is the program director at 670. So it's kind of neat to have those ties there, and have those connections. When a job came open recently, I did talk to him about it, which was kind of cool to even be considered for. Um, Not that I don't know if it would be a good fit for it, but to even have the conversation with a station that I loved, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without, was kind of neat. So that was fun. And honestly, somebody that's inspired me a lot over the years as a professional is Howard Stern. I know a lot of people are not going to understand. They're going to think of Howard in the 90s and the shock jock and all of that. Howard is a completely different human being in his 70s. And he's all into animal rescue, which I really love because I am a humongous animal person, huge dog person. And him and his wife, Beth, do a ton. I mean, their apartment is like an animal sanctuary. And they do a bunch with North Shore Animal League. They raise a ton of money. They put their money where their mouth is. They have animals all over their house. I mean, it is insane. They are rehabbing, the sick and the wounded, and it's pretty awesome. So I love that. He has gone through, Howard was a guy that, was mentally, for lack of a better word, abused as a kid. Didn't get a lot of love, didn't get a lot, so I think he kind of really, had that shock jock mentality and got famous from it, but it was all kind of, a way of kind of lashing out against his upbringing and his parents. And I think through a ton of therapy, he has gained a lot of knowledge and balance, and it's been really interesting to listen to. And what I love about him is that he's so honest, he's so truthful, and that in his interview skills are the best of all time. I teach a class, and I use him for my interview portion of the class. I there's a couple of clips that I love, and there could go endless, but there was one I found really quick when I was looking for stuff for that class for my interviews, and it was with Mila Kunis. And he did an incredible job of, none of it had to do with Hollywood or relationships or anything like that out of the bat. It had to do with their upbringing and coming from Russia and learning English and really kind of tapping into the person, and then getting her to open up from there, doing the same thing with Hugh Jackman, talking about one of his favorite musicians, the first thing. Kind of remarkable. So he's a guy that I really kind of look to and I listen to, and I listen to his pacing, how he moves along topics, how he moves along callers, how he interacts with his staff. And from a broadcast perspective, he's pretty remarkable.
For a quick plug, I actually went to Show Pony University, and I will say, any broadcaster out there, take this course. This is the best investment. I have one of the best that I've ever made. I went to Northwestern, as Chris knows, and this didn't even come close. You learn the essentials of broadcasting. You learn the profession. And please, if you have to invest in something, invest in Show Pony University.
That was my hope, because the art of broadcast, there's so much digital media, there's so many podcasts, and I feel the art of broadcasting is a lost art. And there's so much, for lack of a better word, trash that's just out there because people, they have microphones, they've got fancy cameras, but they don't know how to broadcast. They don't know how to deliver the goods. So it's just a lot of gobbledygook coming out of their mouths. So that's why I started that, to really kind of give people guidance and organizational skills and interview skills, and to be able to, hook people, keep them engaged, and actually, teach them how to put together a compelling product.
And if just a little quick tease, if anyone takes Show Pony University, learn what a topic tree is. That will save you.
I taught it last night. I taught the topic tree last night. We started our third class with 7 students. One of the students is 14 years old, a kid named Reed, which he reminds me of me. And it's the coolest thing ever. Like, and he's podcasting, he's in contests, like he's doing all this stuff. It's so cool. I love it. And we topic treed last night, which was cool.
You had to tell Reed or tell anyone, you went from Libertyville High School to MTSU to SiriusXM.
Yeah. So that's an interesting question, actually. I was getting ready to graduate from Middle Tennessee State, MTSU, in December of '04. And this, I think, was the week before Thanksgiving that I got this phone call. So if you think about it in that terms, I'm getting ready to graduate. It's Thanksgiving time. So that's a couple weeks away. That's I think December 4th was my graduation. So maybe like the next week or the week after that. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea if I was going to move home. I had no idea if I was going to go back to Vernon Hills, if I was going to work. I did get rejected for a job. I had interned at Sporting News Radio, and there was a guy that was working at Sporting News Radio. Everybody else loved me there. Nick Pavelatos, who I work with at SiriusXM, he's on NFL radio. He was my intern supervisor. He was great. The host, Chris Russell, I still have a relationship with. I see him every year at Army Navy. He's wonderful. Everybody but this Jason guy didn't like me. So when it came to them deciding if they were going to hire some of the interns, he was the guy that blocked me. He did not like me, which ended up being an incredible thing because instead of me going home and taking a job at Sporting News, I ended up not having a job. And then right before Thanksgiving, my friend Ben calls me, and Ben had just taken a job with Rivals.com, and Rivals is the college football recruiting website. And they were starting a radio show, Sirius Radio before XM. Sirius before the merger, I should say, but Sirius Radio was kind of finding some programming and somehow got into a relationship with Bobby Burton and Shannon Terry, and they started a 2-hour radio show, and they had recruited Bill King to be a part of it. And they hired my friend Ben to produce it, and Bobby Burton was the co-host, who is a big recruiting guru. And they had the first college programming on the Sirius side of satellite radio, very much in its infancy, very much before Howard Stern even got there. This was, at the beginning, so probably not a lot of money, but they started this thing and built a little studio in Brentwood, and Ben got hired there. And I guess they were talking one day in the office about how they needed help on their website. They needed help, somebody editing photos and videos. And they asked me to, or Ben had said, "Hey, do you need a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I don't know what I'm going to do." And he's like, "Well, there's a job editing prospect videos and photos, blah, blah, blah." Not what I wanted to do, but okay, it's something in media. So I went in and interviewed the next day. I remember taking my final exam in media law, and I drove out to Brentwood, Tennessee, and got the interview. And then I drove home and I got a phone call and got offered the gig. So it was like for $22,500. It wasn't for much money, but I got offered a job. So now I have a job, wonderful. I can afford ramen noodles and sort of my rent and a cell phone bill, and that's about it. But I had a job. And then about a week into that, when I started January 5th, or January 3rd, 2005. And I did the editing of the videos and the photos for, I think, 2 weeks before I was moved over to the radio side full time because they needed help. The producer, Ben, was kind of in and out. He had some scheduling things going on. They realized that I was probably best suited to be in that environment because of my background and experience, and I could help them in the infancy kind of get this going. So I ended up there. And then from there, I was producing. And then one day, Bill King got sick and couldn't come in to tape an interview with the number one recruit in basketball in the country, Josh McRoberts, who signed with Duke and played in the NBA. And I begged to let them have me do it. They did. And they said, if the interview's good, we'll play it. If not, we'll just throw it out. But nobody else was available to do it. I did it. The head of SiriusXM Sports the next day heard it, asked who I was. They needed programming. This was a bare time. This was the beginning. And they essentially said, if you feel comfortable, give that kid an hour. And that's how it started.
And now you're named one of the top 20 sports shows in America.
Which is cool because most of those shows are like national shows. My show is national, but what I mean is like they cover the NBA and NFL and MLB. We cover college sports. So as far as just like niche sports. I think it was us and pro wrestling and, maybe one other that cracked in, which was kind of neat.
And part of that article, and you wrote an article about being named top 20, you mentioned that you keep the receipts of every rejection and every setback. What's your oldest receipt?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I'll say this, the most profound receipt, instead of getting into like a detail, and calling somebody out, I just think it's being who I am in a business of athletes, right? So you're constantly having to show that you're better and you're more interesting, you're more entertaining, you're a better listen. I say all the time, we're not playing football. If we were playing football, they would be better than I am, but they're not. This is radio. This is podcast. This is entertainment. This is, to me, performance art. So it's getting past, and a lot of times you have bosses that are infatuated with the athlete, infatuated with their accomplishments on the field, maybe favor them because of that. I didn't win a Super Bowl or a college championship. So I think that probably, more than anything, there's been a series of those over the years where, it's almost to watch me go. I'll prove to you that I'm better than them.
And when you found out that you were named one of the top 20 in the country, who was the first person you wanted to tell?
You know, Probably my mom, because my mom loves that kind of stuff. She gets excited when there's any kind of validation or award or some kind of accomplishment. She gets excited about that. So I think for her and for me, I mean, it was kind of cool to be able to tell my mom, because certainly my mom and my dad put a lot of belief in me, and I had a friend of mine in high school that probably could have been just as good that I did it with, and his parents were not as supportive, and they kind of told him he would never make it in this world, and should get a real job. And I think he's doing fine, but probably not having as much fun. So I think that support. So it was pretty, that was a pretty cool phone call.
And you went from MTSU to SiriusXM. You
Hmm.
recently got your master's at the University of Alabama. A few years ago, there was a clip of you sitting next to Nick Saban, and you showed him a clip of your daughter Morgan saying "Roll Tide."
Yeah.
Did you ever think that you'd get your master's from Alabama at that moment? And did you ever think you'd be on the board of visitors?
No, no, I didn't. I got my master's from Alabama, honestly, because it was the right price. It was the cheapest place to get it. And it was I did it online. So I'm like, what does it matter? And I mean, I could have gotten it online from Columbia. I got in there, and I could have gotten it online from NYU. And I guess that would have looked fancy. But Alabama's Alabama. Like, I have so much love for it. And what I did not realize at the time when I got my degree from Alabama is what it was going to end up unlocking, because by just being a part of that family, they have wholeheartedly embraced me more than any other community ever has. And really, I will say this: not only was it the most affordable, and it was, but I always have favored Alabama because Alabama has always been very, very special to me. Alabama has always treated me incredibly well. Every single time I get invited, this is not a joke. Every speaking engagement, and I've done a bunch of them, but every speaking engagement I've ever done, every group that has ever asked me to do it is in the state of Alabama. It's either in Mobile or Gulf Shores or Hoover or Birmingham or Tuscaloosa or somewhere like that. And I always have the most incredible people that I meet and I take pictures with and I get to talk to. And it's just been fantastic. These Red Elephant Clubs have been awesome. I've got to speak at Bryant Denny Stadium a couple of times. I love going to Alabama. I have a favorite restaurant in Alabama, the Bright Star in Bessemer, which I'm absolutely in love with, and the history of it, and Andreas, the owner, and the Greek history behind it, and the immigration story. It's been around since 1905. It's a cool state. It really is. So for me to have the association that I do with it, I never could have imagined it would have grown the way that it has. And not only has it been, like you said, I'm on the board of visitors now for the College of Communications, which I never would have thought, but I'm so honored. I have been to the meetings. I have Been there to help with some seminars for the Alabama State that they do for high school over the summer. I go to Tuscaloosa quite often. I feel very comfortable there. Every time I go there, I look forward to it. I have places I like to visit and shop, and it's become honestly a place that I could see myself living someday. I don't know how my wife would feel about that or my child, but I have always had and it's grown a just a love for anytime I get to spend in Tuscaloosa. Dreamland Barbecue, the original, fantastic. I had that last time. I think I was teaching you guys, and
Yeah.
I went and rushed over there, rushed over to get my Dreamland. So I love it. I do. I love Tuscaloosa. So it's been really cool.
And to wrap things up, if there's anyone who's going through the process that you went through, the struggles, the I don't want to say rejection, but rejection, what can they do besides go to Show Pony University?
Yeah.
What can they do in terms of
Persevere.
yeah.
That's the best thing I could say. Just keep working hard. Keep working hard, keep getting better, keep putting in the reps. If you suck now, I sucked at the beginning of my career. I was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to host a show. It was a bunch of gobbledygook coming out of my mouth. Had no idea. But you know what I did? You know why I made it? Because I cared. I was passionate about the subject and I was open to coaching. And so be open to getting better. If somebody gives you suggestions, take them. But think about them thoughtfully, right? But if it's somebody who knows what they're doing and has been on the air for a while or whatever, I mean, it's certainly something to think about. Um, and I just would keep doing it, 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 keep trying, keep practicing, keep doing it. Even if nobody's watching it. And I think that is the best advice to finally break through. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get. And eventually, you're going to be so conditioned that it's going to be so natural, and then your product's actually going to be good.
And before we wrap up, I want to start a tradition here on Making the Marquee. The show's the show's name is about making it to the marquee. The moment when your name is in lights, the moment where your journey's just begun. If you had to make your own marquee, what three words would be on your marquee and why?
What three words would be on my marquee? Passionate, energetic, and I would say loud. Passionate, energetic, and loud.
And why those three?
I'm very passionate about everything. I have ADHD and I think it plays into it. But like when I really sink into something, I sink into it and I get to learn and know everything about it. So that when I'm on the radio, it is high energy, it's high pace, and I like to speak at a different volume when I'm on the radio. So I think those would be the reasons why.
Chris, thank you for being the inaugural guest on Making the Marquee. Your story reminds us that careers aren't built in straight lines. They're built through resilience, rejection, unexpected opportunities, and the courage to move forward. Catch Chris every day on Full Ride on SiriusXM from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern, and catch him every day on YouTube for Show Pony Live. To everyone listening, thank you for joining us for our very first episode of Making the Marquee. If you enjoyed today's conversation, rate, like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts.